Discord image.
Have you been successfully with hacking Spectrum router?
Oh, it's a fun story, bro.
Yeah, I want to hear it.
You know
F
anything
Spectrum.
you know anything about how we're hacking?
2028 USA political future chat.
No idea.
Okay. So where do you live, bro? Like state.
New Jersey.
Okay. And it's next okay. Tell me something about your nearby neighborhood. I'm not trying to dox you, but you know, I think it'll be fun. I can lead you into a fun path. FCC map. Are you able to? Are you willing to tell me like roughly where you are?
I mean, not really. It's kind of weird. You know?
Okay, then
Or just pick an area, like
yeah,
let's
like
say Las Vegas.
no. It has to be New Jersey, and then here's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to find coverage for where you are, and you know, I don't want to dox you. You know who I am. You know what I look like. I don't know you much. I don't think so. Yeah, I don't know you much. But I can show you a demo if you're interested. Otherwise, I'll go straight into Spectrum router hacking, bro.
Yeah, I mean, you go straight into it. It's fine.
All right. So what's your background? Just to understand, so I don't.
Computer engineering.
Electrical engineering.
Computer engineering.
Oh, computer engineering. So software or?
Yeah.
Okay. So you know anything about iOS or secure boot?
Not really. No.
Okay. So let me bring some concepts. iOS secure boot stage. Okay. Maybe this will be easy to explain. So in iOS, when you turn on the phone, you have an iPhone, right?
Yep.
Okay. When you first turn on the phone, what's gonna happen is, a chip on your iPhone, a chip that is read-only because it's already burned into it at the factory, that is boot ROM. So ROM is read-only memory, right? And it goes to low-level bootloader, it goes to iBoot, and then into the kernel, and then you can launch apps, right? Now,
Yep.
boot ROM is read-only, but even for iPhones at boot ROM, they verify the signature of the next stage. So say I'm booting from boot ROM into bootloader. Boot ROM would check if the bootloader has a certificate, like a private public key certificate signed by Apple. If it's not signed by Apple, it would refuse to boot, which means if you try to desolder the bootloader chip or just the NAND chip and then replace the bootloader or change some things in it, it would just not boot. Does that make sense?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, and it would apply all the way from the hardware boot into software. This is typically the firmware stage, and then firmware contains the kernel, and then kernel handles the user land applications. So everything is signed for iOS. Now, Apple is the best at doing hardware and software security together. Now, this refers to Spectrum router. Why I ask where you live generally is because I want to know your coverage, so I can find out if you use a Spectrum modem or just like a wireless, fixed wireless connection. I'm not trying to dox you. I don't know you. You don't know me, but you know me because you see my face. I don't know you much. So that's why I asked the general area if I feel comfortable to ask. But it's okay. So Spectrum normally comes with a router, right? Did they give you a router?
Yeah. Or they give you a router, or you have your own.
But did you use their router or do you use your own?
I use my own.
Okay. But have you seen the router that they gave you before?
No.
Okay.
Oh
Well,
yeah. It depends on which one they give you.
so the latest one looks like this.
Yeah, this was the latest one. Looks like yes.
Yes. And well, it's not the latest one anymore. I have a newer one. It's a square one. But here's the issue. This is a Wi-Fi 6 router. It's made by Spectrum. It has Spectrum logo in front of it. Here's what a lot of manufacturers do, even for Verizon. they make a device, they lock it down, and then once they take it back, they throw it away into a landfill. What do you do with that device, right?
Right.
So Spectrum contracts other manufacturers, and this specific one is manufactured by Askey. Askey is a router manufacturer. So Askey make the router for Spectrum with the Spectrum logo on the router. Spectrum puts their own software on it, locks it down, and then send it to the customer. You have your own router, right? Do you flash a custom firmware?
Yeah. Oh, I got I use my own.
OpenWRT or DDWRT?
Let's see.
It should be easy. Does it look like this?
Let's see.
Here, does it look like this interface?
Open VPN. No.
No.
I got like a. Go ahead.
Like the top. Look at the top bar. Not just this open tab, like open VPN tab, just the top bar.
I can't really read it. Yeah. We got. You can do like network management. You can kick people off it.
But are you sure it looks exactly like this interface?
No.
Okay.
Or you talking like I don't use like a Spectrum mode router. So.
No, I know you don't. This is not a Spectrum interface. I'll show you the interface later. But this is a router for OpenWRT. Do you know what is OpenWRT?
No.
Okay, then that makes things easier. So remember I said that Spectrum lets Askey make a router and put their own software on it and lock it down, right?
Yeah.
That's like Apple shipping you a Mac computer and saying you can only run Mac OS. What if I want to run Linux on Mac OS on the Mac computer?
You can. You could.
You can't.
You can't.
You could kind of, but imagine like Apple completely prevent you from running Linux at all from the bootloader. They lock everything so you can't run Linux. This is Or Verizon sell you a phone. They lock the bootloader, an Android phone, so you can't install Graphene OS or other Android firmware on it. This is exactly what Spectrum is doing with the router. But the issue is, once they have the router, they throw it away. Like once it's decommissioned, they just throw it in the landfill, right? They don't deflash it, they don't distribute it, donate it. It's just put in a locked-in software, rent it to customer, take it back, and throw it away. So OpenWRT is like the Linux equivalent of routers, right?
Okay.
So people are trying to get freedom into OpenWRT, get freedom into their own router. Now, why would people want to get freedom into their own router? Let me show you the interface.
There's a lot of benefits to it.
About a what?
There's a lot of benefits to it.
Yes, this is the main part. This is what happens when you go to the router 196.168.1.1. It tells you to scan a QR code and you manage everything in the app. You get what I'm saying?
Pretty shitty.
Yes, you don't have any you can't change anything. The only thing you can do is scan a QR code and log into your Spectrum account on the app. What can you set on your Spectrum account? Port forwarding, Wi-Fi password, reboot, and then some other small stuff. Like you have no control over your router, right?
Yeah.
So going back to this, people to know what I'm doing. OpenWRT on a Spectrum router that is locked down. You gotta go from step by step, right? I can explain to you how he hacks the router like this, but it's not easy to explain. So I've taught you about the environment of how Spectrum or deals with the router and how the OpenWRT fits into this context, and also how iOS handle boot stages. Now I'm gonna lead into this.
Okay.
Let me look for something because I use leveling for this. Like I say, teach me in different levels, and then because I'm learning this myself too, but I understand it a lot in phases.
No, I understand. Well, like I deal with Lua code. I deal with
scripting,
but I deal with logic, logic gate stuff.
Yeah, it's hardware stuff.
Networking.
So yes, so I do cybersecurity, and I want to learn about OpenWRT for more hacking. You do electronic stuff. So maybe in the future, if you're interested, we can collaborate.
Yeah, I'm kind of like a network engineer.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I don't care. I can show you my LinkedIn. If you're interested, you can send me a request.
Yeah.
Hold on. Okay. I sent you a friend request too. Okay, you there?
Yep.
Okay. Now, the goal is this. You have a lockdown router. Every boot stage is signed. So if you want to change one part, you cannot continue to boot. And what is important is if you want to build a OpenWRT image for the router to run, you need to be able to at least boot into the original image and extract everything, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So in order to extract the original image to build your new OpenWRT image, you need to boot into the original image with root access so you can dump everything, right? Now,
Yeah.
that's not the only way to dump. You can physically desolder the chips, but I think you already know how hard it is to desolder an N chip, right? Into a programmer and then dump everything.
Yeah, it's really difficult.
But at least in our case, it's easier because the NAND chip isn't encrypted by default, unlike iPhone chips, you know?
Yeah.
Because in iOS, the chip is already encrypted, and then the SEP, the secure enclave, decrypts it while it turns on. But in this case, everything is not encrypted. So if you're able to desolder the chip and then extract everything, then you can already see the internal image. But that is too difficult for most people to do. You don't want to, you know.
Right. It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah. So if you can find a way to escalate privileges while it's turning on, and make sure it actually turns on, then you'll have the ability to dump it right in the serial console. This person documented how he hacked the router.
That's pretty cool.
Yes, I will also share this to you. This is interesting, so you can learn how it's done step by step.
Yeah.
But he has a GitHub of everything he did, but condensed into exactly one step by step. So it doesn't show you all the things he tried, just exactly what worked. So maybe this will help. So the first thing he do is, in order for him to understand what the router is, it's like a black box hacking, but you can only do inputs, so you don't really know what's coming out. So the first thing he does is he gets serial port access. Do you know anything about UART?
No. First time I
Okay.
heard that.
Okay. So UART is something where it's like terminal. Basically, it's terminal, but for hardware. So have you played with Arduinos before?
Yep. Yeah.
Exactly. So you have Arduino plug into your breadboard, and then the other end directly into the UART interface on the router.
Yep.
Let me see. But in his case, he doesn't have Arduino. He just has a UART to USB. Basically, one port, just like some ports for UART, like some pins, like two pins, one for in, one for out, and one for ground. I believe that's how it works. That's what he did. So the first thing he had to do is he has to find where is the UART port on the motherboard, right? Now he finds this RX, TX, and ground. That's the three ports for UART. So one is input, one is output, and the other is a ground. So input is you can send commands into the serial console. Output is you get whatever it's showing you, and then ground is just ground, you know.
Yeah.
So he connected to UART. Now, one thing that UART, like terminals, does is it doesn't require you to use a password, but the manufacturer of this SoC, the CPU basically, Qualcomm, they have they have a secret protocol, like a proprietary protocol, to put passwords to block people from getting access to UART. Because if you're able to connect to UART, you're able to see the boot logs. Do you know anything
Yeah.
about boot logs?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Let me show you.
That's very
Mhm.
very important information when we get into boot logs.
Yes. The boot log. Oh, this is boot log. Okay.
Yep.
So he had access to UART, and then he can see the boot log, and then boot log tells you which offset, which image is loaded, and then the delta. So you can kind of calculate how to dump an image, but you can't really dump an image. You can just see it turning it on. And you got to figure out how to dump it, right?
Well, it's only a log. Can't really do much with that.
Yes,
But it gives
it's
you
only
information,
logs.
though.
Yes, and this
That
is
can help
because he.
you crack more stuff.
Yep, and this is only because he connected to UART and he's able to see stuff. But in this case, this is after he cracked UART. But Qualcomm, the manufacturer for the chip, put password for Spectrum to use. So Spectrum can put a password for UART.
Okay.
And UART is basically serial port. Serial, input, output, and ground.
Yep.
So... So he dumped the eMMC. He desoldered the chip himself. This is very difficult to do.
Yes.
And let's see. And he read it directly from the programmer, like what I said earlier.
Of course.
Let me read this for a second. Yeah, it's basically a pain in the butt to desolder an eMMC chip. And he also showed it here, right? This is what Spectrum Router shows you if you go into the 192.168 interface.
Oh, it's this guy again, dude. It's this guy again.
Hi.
It's Goose Dad.
Hi. Okay.
Yo, Goose
so,
Dad, what? Okay,
what?
sorry.
No, you ask.
Yeah. What are you? Are you a network guy? Are you a developer? What are you?
I'm a nerd.
No, yeah. But like, what programming languages do you know?
I don't know any programming language, bro. I know AI. AI is my programming language. I vibe code.
Oh, ChatGPT.
Yes, that's my programming language.
No, for real though. You're like a tech guy, right?
Yeah, I'm a tech guy. You want to add LinkedIn, bro?
No.
Well, let me explain to Ali.
What do you do?
Let me explain to AliCat. I'm gonna just do a short follow up. So, Radioactive, do you have Spectrum in your home? Spectrum Internet?
Dude, you're like a bad state actor, dude. I'm not gonna tell you shit.
Oh, my tablet.
Well, if you want me to explain what I'm doing to you, I have to at least know some basic questions. I mean, there are millions of Spectrum customers.
What are you doing to me? First of all, I'm not connected to my home Wi-Fi. So
it doesn't matter. I just want to know if you have Spectrum Internet or not. I'm not hacking you, bro.
I don't trust you, dude. You're lying.
All right, then I won't talk to you, bro. Okay.
Okay.
Bro, what is telling him what service you have? How does that change anything?
This relates to exactly what I'm telling AliCat before you guys join in. So if you want to join in on the conversation, maybe I can help you understand, and then we can go from there. But if you don't want to tell me
you
what...
can help me understanding without asking me questions, all right?
If you don't, you could just lie and tell him you do, bro.
Whatever.
He's gonna send me a link, dude.
No, I'm not gonna send you no links. Okay, so remember, AliCat, I told you that he dumped the eMMC chip, right?
Yeah.
So now he's able to see the file system because the file system is not encrypted. So on boot, unlike iPhones, on boot decrypts the file system. This one can be dumped. So he dumped the eMMC chip and he found this HTTP config in Linux inside the router, and it showed this username and password. So
move your screen so you see.
Oh, okay.
This. There you go. Okay.
So this is...
What's the password they use?
This is only for the warehouse people. So this is actually fun because the router sees themselves.
Is this like a level 1, level 2 password kind of thing?
I don't think so. This is just for.
Some stuff I log into is level 1 password, which gives you.
How do SQL injections work?
Not exactly.
Level 2 is.
Okay,
level 2
so
passwords give you more freedom. What you can do.
Yes. So if you are yes, kind of like that. So if you're a regular consumer, right, you only have access to the Spectrum app and the web interface. You can't do anything with a router. Right?
Yeah.
But if you are a warehouse worker, managing flashing Spectrum routers, you need to have access to be able to do certain things like flashing a firmware, right?
Yep.
So this is what warehouse mode is. So if you're able to trick the router into going into warehouse mode, then you can type in this password and you can flash an image for the router.
Yep.
Now it's not as simple as flashing an image that you changed, because they do signatures verification, but this is way far ahead. Okay, so here's how the router decides if it wants to go into warehouse mode or not. It does this DNS lookup, and if this DNS lookup maps to any IP, then it's going to go straight into warehouse mode. And then in warehouse mode, as long as you type in this password for the authentication, you are in warehouse mode. When you are in warehouse mode, you'll be able to flash images. Okay, so that's the very simple explanation. So what he did is he told the router with a second OpenWRT router to look up to, so the router he's attacking, the Spectrum router he's attacking, connects to his own router that he controls, an OpenWRT router. It can also be a Linux machine, and that machine is basically handles DNS. It says, hey, DNS right here. This is if the Spectrum router looks for this DNS, the router he controls says, hey, I'm that router, so you look for me. And then since the Spectrum router sees that this DNS can be resolved to an IP, which is a local DNS, and it would assume it's in warehouse mode. But even if it's in warehouse mode, you still need the username and password. And luckily for our case, HTTP, it's the password is hard coded, right? So now he is in warehouse mode. He has access to the following APIs. This API you can't access as a customer, but as a warehouse.
Boy, not the APIs. Oh boy, oh boy.
Mm-hmm. And you can access this as a customer, but not as you can't access this as a customer, but you can as a warehouse worker in a Spectrum warehouse. So imagine if you are in a Spectrum warehouse and then you receive a batch of routers, and maybe it comes directly from Askey, the manufacturer, and it's too old or it's not flashed, right? Spectrum already made a deal with Askey to say, hey, Askey, put my public key inside the bootloader. So when Askey shipped them the router, maybe it's not even flashed with anything. But because the firmware Spectrum owns is signed with the private key, then the warehouse worker can just flash those firmwares directly into those routers with these APIs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So
How does SQL injection work? Are we not done yet?
no.
Okay.
Okay.
No, we got a whole fucking PDF file here, dude.
Yes. But we're telling him how we hack a Spectrum router into loading custom firmware, which saves routers from environmental waste, and also it's just fun to hack routers, right? Okay. But
See this guy, dude. He's a bad state actor. I told you, don't trust him.
no, bro, I'm not.
We
But
got
here's
Wireshark going right now, pulling our fucking IPs.
no. But here's the thing, right? The Spectrum warehouse worker doesn't have access to the private key. They just probably get a USB stick with the firmware image from the IT department and say, hey, flash every single router with this image, and this image we already signed for you. So all you have to do is flash these with one of these APIs. Now, these APIs allow you to get the firmware version, updated, mode, reboot, factory reset, update firmware, fan, RPM. It's a lot of permissions, but it's not all the permissions. It's just certain things reserved for the warehouse workers to do, but it's not much. So this person, he set up a TFTP server. Do you know anything about TFTP?
No.
Okay. So routers typically, when they turn on, if they're in recovery mode, like if you hold a certain button and you turn it on, it would reach out to a TFTP server automatically because it's assuming it's in recovery mode. So when you turn on a router and the router sees, oh wait, he's pressing the recovery button, that means I need to go to recovery, and it starts reaching out to a whatever IP. I don't know. It just depends on whatever manufacturer set. So in TFTP mode, the routers say, hey, 192.168, are you here? And if the TFTP service says, hey, I'm here, download this image, and then the router takes the image and flash it. That's how it works, TFTP recovery. So if you buy a TP-Link router and you bricked it or you turn it off while it's updating, you can put it into TFTP mode and flash the factory image. So that's what TFTP is for. Okay, so this guy got the router into TFTP because he had access to the warehouse API. Now he's trying to flash his own image with OpenWRT, but it says image check failure. What does this mean? Remember I said earlier that the image is signed with a private key?
Yeah.
The private key is only owned by the IT department at Spectrum. So if you're trying to flash an image, it's not going to work because you don't have the private key. You can't flash anything that you want because the bootloader is encrypted, like what I said in the beginning, right?
Right. Yep.
So at least he has access to the warehouse API. He needs to see how he can escalate his privileges to flash his own firmware and run it, right? Let me look here. So one thing he did after he dumped the firmware from EMMC is he looked for every strings inside the firmware image. So if you're, say, trying to hack a program, and if that program isn't safe enough and stores strings directly inside the program itself, you can read the strings and maybe you can try to decrypt it, right? Or like mess around with it and find important information. The same thing applies to this firmware image. He extracts the firmware image and he's looking for all the strings, and then he finds a check on firmware utilities that says it's looking for a string with this specific thing and this specific thing. So what image check failure is, maybe it's not just a signature. Maybe it's also looking for the file name with this thing inside. So your file name has to have this when you send it to the router. Otherwise, the router would say image check failure. Okay.
Right. See the
But
bypass it.
exactly. But it also looks for this SHA1 and CRC32. So even if you can, I mean, let's ignore that. Whatever. So he put his own firmware and he put this name inside it as the firmware name, and then it says upgrade complete right here. So that means he bypassed that check. But I already said the firmware is still has to pass through a signature check, and you can't do that without the private key from Spectrum, and you can't really hack a private key or guess it, right?
Right.
You should just give this to him to read, dude. Why you have to fucking read it out loud?
Well, I'm explaining concepts in a digestible way. Maybe you can understand it, but doesn't mean everyone else can. Right?
Well, I mean, why does he need to understand it?
Well, he asked, so I just described. I think it's an interesting thing I'm learning about. And I was originally reading this myself, and he said just to explain it because he's a electrical
okay,
engineer.
he asked. Okay, fine. That's
Yeah.
fair.
Okay. Remember at first I said that Spectrum locks down the router and then make sure that only they can control it, right? They use this thing called OpenSync. I actually have OpenSync right here. OpenSync is a platform for manufacturers or companies like Spectrum to use to sync configuration data into the router with their own permissions, right? So only Spectrum can make changes to the router using OpenSync. This is why when I have a router from Spectrum and I go into 192.168.1.1, I see a dumbass fucking QR code on top of the screen instead of the ability to change the settings right inside. Here, I get this dumbass motherfucking interface. I can't do shit on it, and I have to log into the Spectrum account just to change it. That's retarded. So, how they do this is they do this using OpenSync. When you log into your Spectrum account and you change the Wi-Fi name on your Spectrum account for this router, Spectrum sends it to OpenSync or goes through OpenSync, and OpenSync sends it to the router. That's how it kind of works, right? So it changes the network name, configuration, goes to OpenSync, goes to the router. Going back to it, this is kind of how he realized, okay, this is how Spectrum is I'll show you. I'll just say this on itself. OpenSync only functions as a tool for lazy OEMs, Spectrum, to make locking down devices easier. They can create these trashy cloud routers at scale, and unfortunately, OpenSync does signature check on the firmware, so you can't bypass that. So he's investigating the warehouse API, and he tried to brute force to see if there's a something he can crack. U-boot has a, remember I said U-boot. Wait, this is not serial console.
You learning cybersecurity, Alicat?
No, I work in a I'm like a network engineer, computer engineer, electrical engineer.
Yeah.
Which
Test
one?
engineer. I'm all of them. The one.
You're a network engineer, computer engineer.
Yeah.
Motherfucker, you can digest this shit. Doesn't need you fucking.
Kind of, but this stuff I don't really work on. Stuff that
No?
That's
Oh.
fine. It's a fun way to
If you're
learn
a
because I
network
just
engineer, you should probably. If you're a network engineer, you should probably know this shit, right?
yeah.
no
I mean, I know
no.
stuff.
This
but I
is-
don't know that's like
This
No?
is hardware.
concepts.
This is hardware hacking and hardware design. It's more so for cybersecurity,
Yeah.
for hardware hacking. But he can apply this skill if he's a network engineer. But this is a very deep level of sophistication for someone who wants to learn about things.
Oh, okay.
Mhm. Okay, so remember I said that Qualcomm has a kind of a special protocol to allow people to disallow people to look at the serial console with a password. This normally serial console isn't protected by a password, but in this case, Qualcomm gave Spectrum the ability to do so. So Spectrum said, okay, anyone who wants to access serial console to look at boot logs, make sure that he can't do that unless he type in a password. And the password is SHA-256. So he tried to decrypt it for 3 weeks, I think, and it doesn't work because it's common knowledge at this point that Spectrum uses passwords with special characters. So maybe something like this, 4p at ss that whatever that means, right? So he tried to brute force it for 3 weeks. It doesn't work. So at that point, he gave up on software attacks, but he still have the hardware on his hand, the IoT device, or the router. Let's take a look at how he tries to hack the router with just his pins, okay? So he needed to write to eMMC, but here's the thing. You can't, the eMMC chip is soldered on top of the motherboard, right? You want to write to eMMC while the router is on. How does that work? It doesn't. You can maybe put something in between and read the signals, but that is way too advanced for him or for normal people to do. So what he does is something called in-system programming. In-system programming, what it does is basically everything remains the same. Everything is soldered. eMMC is soldered onto the motherboard, but he attaches certain jumper pins onto or under the chip or onto the jumpers of the chip. So he can kind of change how things run but not really like having to structure like something in between the eMMC chip and the motherboard. He can just kind of attach to the chip between the chip and the motherboard and kind of change things, you know?
Right.
Mm-hmm. So this part I don't understand. I'm still learning. But basically what he did is he found the hardware traces to be able to jump certain connectors. And how he does this is very risky to do, by the way, is that it's not risky in a sense like it's going to burn you or anything. But if you solder it too much, the lead might just be gone and you can't access it anymore, or it might break the machine.
Right.
So what he did is, this is the PCB, and the leads are right under the PCB, and there's a thin layer of protection above the PCB. So if he wants to access the leads, he has to use the sandpaper to sand off the top of the PCB in order to contact the leads. And what he did is, I don't know how he did it. I'm still learning. But I suppose maybe he had a multimeter, one on the chip and on each lead, where he just traced the leads. I don't know how. But he found these 3 leads that I suppose is target. So what he did is he sanded the top off and he put a solder bolt on it, and then he connect a jumper to it. So he has access to these leads, which supposedly allows him to interrupt, say, the clock cycle for the eMMC chip. What does that mean? eMMC chip has to read and write, right? One and back is 1 cycle. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So if he can interrupt the clock cycle, maybe he can do some interruption while it's doing something important, like authentication.
Right. Because based on your clock cycle,
Mm-hmm.
you can trigger certain command and code.
So I can even make this even more fun. Let's detach from this topic for a bit and just talk about hardware glitching. So one way of hardware hacking is you need to time. So suppose one cycle is this. One cycle is line 140, 141, 142, right? So that's 3 cycles, right? 40, 41, 42, 3 cycles. All right. Suppose that the CPU is running and it's going through all these instructions, right? 167, 168, and then on 169 you see this if condition. If int is var 10 less than 1. I don't know what that means, but say that's authentication. Like if password is correct, or if password is wrong, and then abort, right? So it says, for example, if you are a hacker trying to hack this condition, and it says if password is wrong, skip to this instruction, like deny, right? But if you can glitch the clock cycle at this if condition, it would just skip right over it, because the CPU doesn't have power, bro. The CPU doesn't have the power for that 1 cycle, that 1 nanosecond.
Right.
So when it runs the if condition check, it skips right over it because you disconnect the power for 1 nanosecond, so it skips that condition. But the hardest part is you have to time. You have to time.
How are you gonna fucking time that? There's no way you can time that.
Yes, you can. You don't time it yourself.
It's hard to time it, but
No. You use something. You can program this. You can program even Arduino. You can program Arduino to see.
You're saying you're using.
But,
yes.
But even down to the even a slight variation, right?
I understand. But here's the thing. Normally, how they
same speed every time. I mean, it's fast, but it's
it runs at the fixed clock speed, and it can work. There's even something else. It's called a what's called a EMP. Do you know anything about EMPs?
Fuck no.
So you know EMP attacks, EMP bombs. Do you know anything about EMP bombs?
No, dude.
EMP bomb. Let me show you. Captain America Winter Soldier. I'll show you this.
Oh, you mean like EMP? Like it'll fry the electrical devices, right?
Exactly. An EMP bomb will fry.
The Winter Soldier.
Hold on. Xeno EMP bomb.
Yeah,
Winter...
EMPs. Yeah, I know an EMP. Yeah, literally. I mean, you played this EMP.
But do you know?
Games.
Yeah, but do you know that ElectroCat? AliCat? Sorry.
No.
Okay, so this bad guy, right? He delivers a EMP bomb to a power grid. So when this guy opens the box, it fries the power grid because the EMP bomb emits a pulse, and then it fries every single electrical equipment, right?
Okay.
Remember I said earlier about clock cycles and skipping that instruction, like authentication condition, right? Like if else, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let me show you something very cool. EMP blaster. EMP blaster for IC for hardware hacking. So, here it is. I think this is it. But basically, this is something that points directly on top of the chip. You point this on the chip. You don't solder anything on the chip. If you can time it just right and emit a small EMP pulse, that chip would disable itself for that one condition. So it's the same thing as hardware hacking, like disconnecting the clock cycle for one clock cycle, but in this time, it is EMP blasting. You can actually blast the chip for that 1 nanosecond for it to skip that condition check. It's the same thing.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yes. It's like kind of wireless, but not really, because you put the thing right on top of the chip, right? Okay, I go back to this now. So
magnetic field.
I went off topic. I just thought that was a fun thing to introduce. But yeah, so he has this thing called CLKD0. This is, I won't go into what exactly it is. It's basically the clock thing on the eMMC chip. So the eMMC chip has a clock cycle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And in this case, he didn't directly precisely time when he should, like, there isn't like a 1 nanosecond difference. He just needed to find a place where maybe he can break things, right? Like trial and error, maybe break some things. And if you're doing hardware hacking for like you're trying to time nanoseconds, you would like attach to the serial console and then look for any outputs, and you would just like turn it off and on again, and then maybe time it one nanosecond and then 1 nanosecond and 1 nanosecond and see which one works, and then maybe a particular nanosecond gives you a different boot log. So that tells you, okay, maybe this nanosecond is in a certain condition, and then the boot log would show the difference. And sometimes this can be an authentication check. So you can use that to basically hack. Now this is the same thing. This is for the eMMC clock cycle. So he already found the leads, and now he's gonna try to use that to hack the boot process.
Is this how you're gonna get back at your employer, Alley Cat?
Yes.
Your employer pisses you off, you're gonna hack his fucking hardware.
No.
Yeah.
But
maybe.
I got a guy Spectrum router.
You fucking
just fuck around with it.
set off the fucking break his internal clocks, skip the fucking if statements.
Yes,
get into the
exactly.
system.
Yeah, it'd be cool
Okay.
though, 'cause, like we get hardware from companies that's like locked down, and just
Mhm.
be able to.
Exactly. But it is very hard
What
to
are-
hack. But
Well, apparently not. Just
no,
EMP
this
it
is
for like a millisecond.
no, this is too
This
advanced.
shit's very advanced though, that's for sure.
Here's the thing. You know iPhones, right? iPhones are resistant to this because iPhone has something called the SCP, the Secure Enclave. Have you ever heard of SCP before?
But modems are usually less secure, I feel like, compared to.
So yes, so the iPhone,
Redundancies built into the router to prevent this fucking type of bullshit.
yeah. But this is impossible in iPhones to do for timing attacks like EMP bombs or skipping instructions, because the iPhone has a main chip, but it has a smaller chip called the Secure Enclave processor. So if you can hack the iPhone kernel, you still have to hack the Secure Enclave. So if you can hack the iPhone, you still have to hack the password. And the Secure Enclave,
That's the
what?
fucking gayest shit I've ever heard, cunt.
All right, I'm gonna mute this retard. Give me a second. Let's mute this retard together. Okay. Anyways.
He said,
Um,
hack me, cunt. Yeah, hold on, hack him. He wants to get hacked. I'm a
No. I'm too occupied to deal with this bullshit right now.
He's too
but-
invested, yeah.
Yes, I'll go back to it. So the CLK pin, the pin that he
He's
has
calling
right,
you a poser, dude. Now you gotta do it.
I don't care. The CLK pin right here,
Oh, come on.
he exposed the lead, right? But here's the thing. Remember I said that the CLK pin, I believe, handles the clock cycle for the chip?
Yeah.
Since it handles the clock cycle, it has a very high frequency. So if you're trying to glitch the CLK frequency, you need to make sure that the lines, like the cable that extends, like you attach to the CLK pin, right? You need to make sure that the line is as short as possible. If it's too long, the interrupt frequency would not be effective because it's running a very high frequency, right? So the line has to be as short as possible to whatever you're controlling with. So even the length of the wire matters. Okay, so the CLK pin should be disconnected from the processor, which is the CLK pin handles the eMMC clock cycle. So he wants to temporarily disable the eMMC clock cycle in order to interrupt it. Let's see here. The CLK signal is fairly high frequency and prone to interference. So if the line is higher, maybe some frequencies from like maybe your other Wi-Fi routers can affect it. So you want to make sure the line is as short as possible, or maybe you put some plastic around it so it doesn't get interference. And he says, yes, try to keep the length of the cable you use between the eMMC and the programmer to an absolute minimum, which is to avoid interference. and then this is the big part. The board will power the eMMC, which is the flash chip, and it's not necessary to power it externally, which means you just don't need to give it frequency or voltage. As long as the CLK pin is disconnected from the processor, if powering it externally, some tinkering is required for a pull-up to be necessary for a CLK pin, which just means that he's trying to disconnect for that one clock cycle for that eMMC flash chip, in simple terms. And then because the CPU acts as a sink while the device is powered down, don't attempt to power the eMMC chip externally and not disconnecting the CLK without having an oscilloscope. Fuck that shit. Oscilloscope is just for you to measure
It's an
signals.
electrical device to measure signals. Yes.
Yes.
I know what a telescope is.
Thank you.
We
Thank
got
you.
another one, dude.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
wait. What is the what is the topic? If
We
I
are
can
talking
just-
about hacking
Hardware
a Spectrum router. Yes. So the gist is you have this. The gist is Spectrum ships you a cloud-only router, and it shows you a fucking disgusting interface that you have to log in with your user account in order to change your Wi-Fi name, for example. And then this person is able to dump the router firmware and flash OpenWRT onto it, basically. So I'm going through the process of how he hacks the router. Okay, so at this current step, he has access to a pin that he sent it off. This pin is the CLK pin. It controls the eMMC chip, the flash chip's clock cycle. So if he's able to inject a disconnect signal while the chip is going through something important, maybe he can interrupt the flow and get some privilege escalation. That's the gist.
Time to do this to some fucking AWS data center.
No, it's impossible, bro.
Availability zone.
Yeah.
No, you cannot.
It's not the same thing. But this is
I'm joking.
but this applies to IoT hacking. So say this. I saw something earlier too. What is it called? I'm gonna go to eBay, make sure that my point stuff don't show up. Just kidding.
Show
So-
me passwords, bitch.
So this is I'm gonna go off track for a bit. This guy found this is a garage door opener I'm about to buy. This guy bought a garage door opener, and this is a Chinese company, right? And he logged into it, and then he observed it, and then he saw the payload for Wireshark, like what I said, what Radioactive said earlier.
Oh
And then-
my god, dude. Fucking wire.
Exactly.
Do we use that? I use
Yep. And then he found that the IoT device connects back to China to
Oh,
but it's
dude. Oh, dude.
no, it's not for hacking. It connects to EU, my bad. But it's not for hacking. It's just
Oh.
it subscribes to the event. So say if you're outside of your house, right, and you want to turn on and off the garage opener, you have to go through the app, right? So the app is
Yeah, it's
subscribed.
not for hacking. It's
Yeah.
It's just a
It's just data
cloud.
collection. It's just
No,
data.
it's just a cloud server. It's just
It
cloud.
can be used for data collection. You're not wrong,
There's
but
data is they're collecting your fucking data, dude.
yeah, yes,
That's-
you're not wrong.
Yeah,
But
what do you
it,
expect?
yes, they may connect the data, but it's minimal. 'Cause-
Train their fucking AI models in your fucking garage door.
Yeah, but it's whatever. But they subscribe to the event for the garage door opener through a protocol called MQTT. It's like a message queuing. So maybe if you're sending a message on Discord, it would go through a queue, like a message queuing thing. The same thing applies to this IoT device. So I want to open a garage door opener, send it to the server, and then the server has processes the queue and then sends it to the IoT device to open the garage door. So that's how it works. And so
Fucking gay. Fuck
this
China.
guy found the
No,
apply.
no, it's actually interesting.
Yeah. I mean, no, he's just funny, but he's okay. I agree, he's fucking gay, bro.
Fucking gay, dude.
But he was able to get CVEs. Do you know what a CVE is, you guys?
No, I never heard of that.
Okay.
Is it some sort of attacks?
No. CVE is common vulnerability and exposures. So if you are a security researcher and then you find a bug or something you can hack into, you contact the company through a what is it? Let me find it.
Doesn't Apple have like a bounty? Give you like $1 million?
Yes,
for
yes,
fucking-
exactly. Okay, you will contact a CNA for CVEs. CVE CNA. So the CNA would handle contacting the company that has the issue, and then it would assign you a CVE. So after the company fixes it, then your CVE gets released for public, and you can claim the credit for finding that thing, right?
Get
Now,
money.
maybe you can,
Not
but
always, not
but-
always, but yeah.
but most people just want to have a CV under their own name, just like this guy. So he found like how you can masquerade as other users to open the garage door openers. So you can technically hack other people without their identity.
It's not really hacking. It's really
It's-
simple.
It's just
It's override the main
It's
application
hacking,
by
dude.
having.
It's
I mean technically it is kind
It's
of
hacking technically.
you
but
are
honestly,
you're,
it's-
you know, stealing all their fucking
here's exactly what this
Flipper, man.
credentials
Flipper
for
zero. Flipper
network
zero.
for
Give me a second. This is exactly how it works. You can masquerade as other users to open their garage door openers. Okay? That's really it.
Flipper zero.
But yeah, like Flipper Zero, but this is not Flipper Zero. Flipper Zero is great for radio, but the garage door opener is based on Wi-Fi, so Flipper Zero is not gonna work, right? Because it also protects against replay attacks because it checks the time, so a Flipper Zero is not gonna work. But if you can open other people's garage doors without their consent, it technically is hacking, but it's just not really advanced. It's not like you're getting root access on the garage door opener.
Yeah,
But you can steal them. Actually, you can get access to other stuff. So it is a
Yeah,
big issue.
yeah, but I think you're considered.
And actually, I'm gonna be
if you're a
honest with
robber,
you.
it's
Like,
pretty useful.
okay, because actually my field we do smart systems, so we do integration for the entire building. So
Yeah.
if someone actually buying something is like really not really safe,
Yes.
it's definitely their mistake. Yeah, definitely. Like,
Yeah.
why the fuck would you spend money to actually buy a shitty thing that can actually damage you?
Yes, it makes sense.
Ignorance.
Okay.
Yes.
Mhm.
Because a lot of people will actually think like, I'm not really that important. No one actually will try to like steal information from me.
Yeah,
No,
dude, that's the
yeah,
common misconception.
Nope.
I had that
they
issue
will.
fucking
Yes.
creating just like a simple fucking web app.
What?
There's fucking bots, dude, online. They're looking
Web
for
app?
idiots.
Really?
Okay. Can I continue from this?
Yeah.
Wait
sure.
up. Wait up. Can you guys hear me well?
Yes. What do you want to say?
Where are all these fucking Euro cucks coming from?
So you can hear me well, right?
What do you want to say?
Ты чё, пидор, чё ты?
I want to check whether you can hear me well or not.
Call me
Yes,
crazy.
we can
but
hear
it
you
sounds
well.
like a lot
Continue.
of non-aborted
Continue.
male babies right now talking in chat. What's going on?
Yo, shut
Look,
up, bro.
we're talking about hardware hacking.
Or
Can we
what?
continue or not?
Fucking
Can you?
rape your cat.
Yes, I'm gonna continue.
Sure.
Okay. So this security researcher, he got a CVE by contacting a CNA, and then the CNA, after contacting the manufacturer and had it fixed, assigned him a CVE, and then he can now claim that he found this exploit to himself.
Oh,
That-
neat.
Okay. And this is like the timeline. So that's typically how it works. I'm just
Wow,
good.
it took 4 months.
How much you get paid? How much you get paid?
He didn't get paid for anything. But
Oh,
if
what
the
a
company
bitch, dude.
if the company registered themselves on HackerOne, then they can get paid because HackerOne is a bug bounty program, and it's bug bounty because if you're finding a CVE and reporting to the company, and the company isn't a registered bug bounty company, then it's not going to matter because you can tell them to fix the issue, but they may not fix it even. But if they do fix it,
You can be a gray hat hacker, and
You-
you can
yeah.
just exchange that either that you will damage the entire business by
That's
sharing
not gray. That's black.
yes. But here's the thing.
No, it's no. This actually gray hat,
Black
not
melon.
black hat.
Here's the thing. If
You
you
either
own
pay me or I fucking release your bug to the world. You
Look.
motherfucker.
No,
Whiskey,
even-
I'm gonna mute
no.
you.
Okay. Here's the thing. The difference between gray and black actually doing it for harming. So basically,
Yes.
I will pay you so you can harm some other company. But
Look.
the gray one, they already done some work. They already fix your fence. They can tell you exactly how to fix it, and they are asking for some paying. If you are not gonna pay, they'll be
No.
like, okay, I have done a lot of work there.
No, that's
I've
black hat,
worked
bro.
there.
That's black hat.
No,
That's
that's gray
black.
hat. That's gray hat.
No, it's you're
It's
asking for
literally-
extortion.
It's literally holding the bug for ransom.
No,
dude. It's black.
no. I will be asking for one of two things, dude.
It's
Just
blackmail. It's blackmail.
What's
dude.
two things?
No,
What two
no.
things, bro?
I will be asking for one of two things: either that I will get paid for finding this issue and I'm willing to solve it, or I'm just gonna share my work
That's blackmail.
online
That's black
so
hat
people
hacking.
can be predicted, so people can be secured about the system that you are using. So
Vice.
it's not black. It's
Vice.
not black hat.
As a security
If you
researcher,
release this bug and it's not fixed, then someone can exploit it. Then it's black hat. Okay.
Vice.
That's
Hold
exactly
on,
if
hold
I-
on.
if I saw
We
you-
can
Yes.
okay. As a security researcher, as someone who has integrity, as a professional, you have to go through a CNA, and then the CNA will inform the company on your behalf. You can even be anonymous if you want, and that's what a white hat does.
This
If
is
you
the issue. This is the issue. If they are not, if they do not have a bounty for hacking, you are not gonna. You will be working for free. Yes, you will be have a certificate that you have done this, but eventually you are not. You have spent a lot of time and effort for
This is not
nothing.
interesting. We don't have to. Discuss
all right, I
this
just
anymore.
skip this part.
Okay, fuck.
I mean, I would say agree to disagree. Okay. So let me try to go back into this.
You playing League of Legends? Okay, that's okay.
He's a little fucking Asian, of course, playing League of Legends.
I am playing League of Legends. I'm not Asian. The fuck wrong with you? I hate it. I hate it. Still, I'm playing it.
Wait, what are you, dude?
I'm Egyptian.
The fuck?
Why?
Cool.
There is no human in
I keep
Egypt?
forgetting that you people have internet, dude.
Oh, fuck you.
Muslim Brotherhood.
Hey, you are this guy, Egyptian. Oh no, actor. What is his name?
Like Tamer Hosni.
You fucking sand monkey.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Rami Malek, hacker. Man.
Yeah,
That's you, bro. This is you.
I am not a hacker. I work in security.
Yes,
System integration.
Wait, hold on,
yes,
you just
respect for
stalked
that.
The guy? What the fuck?
No, it's just joking. He's just joking.
No, it's a fucking serious. It's
It's
a
a-
fucking serious.
But he's also an actor from Egypt. That's why I added
Yes,
the picture. Yes.
I thought you just pulled up his YouTube channel for a sec. I was like, what the fuck?
Oh yeah, I totally did, bro.
No.
Okay, so I was talking about each step of the boot process is signed, right? iOS SCP boot stage. So each step of the boot process goes through a public key verification. You need to make sure that the signature is signed by Apple, and in this case, you want to make sure the firmware is signed by Qualcomm, signed by Spectrum. I was talking about this guy was glitching the eMMC clock cycle with this pad, right? Now, he wants to be able to access U-boot by unlocking U-boot because it's password locked behind the serial console. How do you access U-boot? There's only... So now he has access to change the eMMC chip's clock cycle. He's going to try to see if he can interrupt U-boot during the time it's turning on by glitching that pad, the CLK pad, to glitch the eMMC chip. Okay, so let's read this. U-boot shell access is locked behind a password, which I said earlier, and we have established there's no way to patch the boot program in the file system because it is signed, and in a way that affords us more control over the boot process, or access the U-boot shell because it's signed again. So the entire boot chain is signed and secured by public key encryption. However, this does not bar us modifying the configuration used by these programs. So the U-boot, when it turns on, it has these environment variables, like say environment variables this time can be turn on into recovery mode U-boot, or it can say turn on into this other partition or volume U-boot, or turn on this image U-boot. So even if you can't control the U-boot itself, the configuration for U-boot can be changed. And it can be changed inside memory, because U-boot has to read from memory to decide what it should do, right? Okay. So he said,
I will.
yeah.
Okay. I will just send something in the side chat. I hope that I just find this room.
Wait, who
because
owns-
It's really down there.
Who's the owner of this chat?
No clue.
You should see the side check, bro. Look at my pretty face, bro. Just kidding.
No debate.
God. Her name's God.
I'm gonna take a
Okay,
screenshot.
I will ask a dumb question. Do you know this software? Because I've been trying to find it for so fucking long.
Computer using UART pass-through modification.
Because actually, it's coming from the manufacturer. I asked them to change some Bluetooth password, and they sent me the entire document. But the
See
software
Chinese
is
characters. I'm having a
Yeah.
stroke.
Okay, I think
The
okay. This makes sense, but this is a retarded way to configure a fucking Wi-Fi network, bro.
I know. I actually I fucking know. I don't know. I don't need to change the Wi-Fi IP. I need to change the password. So I don't want to. Do you want me to send the entire file? Because in the entire file there is not. There
Bro,
is no.
I don't want to. I don't even want to deal with this, bro. But I will read it.
I just need to know. I know. I don't need you to read. I need to know what application is this. That's it.
Oh, you are
So
pass-through test.
save.
I think you need to get the
Huh?
application from the manufacturer, bro.
I did ask them 3 times and they don't understand me. I need to write it in Chinese, maybe, so they
Oh,
can understand me.
I can help you translate in Chinese, bro.
I have Google Translate, man. I
Oh.
did send it to them. I still they
Hold
don't
on, hold on.
understand the shit.
Hold on, let
Your
me
translator's not good.
let me just do this. I know I can speak Mandarin. 我要讲的是我们的
What?
我要讲的是我们没有你图片教程里面的软体，请把截图里面的 Windows 软体发给我。
Wait. They don't speak. I think traditional. I think they speak to simplified.
Yeah, I know. I'm doing that. Okay, I'll send it to you, bro.
Ah, thank you so much.
And then make sure to attach a screenshot for that.
I will.
Okay.
That's actually really useful. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries, bro. Okay, I go back to it, okay? Okay.
Bro,
So he-
only like an embedded engineer could pull this off.
I know, but this is fun to learn. And I would
It
want
is
to
fun to learn.
I would like to hack a Wi-Fi router myself because I have a retarded fucking Spectrum router up there with a fucking dumbass interface that tries to tell me to connect to their fucking web app, and every day it cuts off, it isolates every client so I can connect to my TV from my from my phone. I just can't AirPlay or anything because every single day in 24 hours it would isolate every client. I have to turn it off and on again. It's fucking retarded, bro.
Who's your ISP?
Spectrum. That's what we're
Same
talking
mine,
about.
dude.
Oh,
Spectrum.
this is why.
Nah, this is why.
Maybe just change your ISP. Get a new router.
No, but
Or just change the router out.
but here's the thing. I asked you where I think I asked Alicat earlier where he was to get his area of coverage. I wasn't trying to dox him, but you know, people are not always comfortable sharing their close location. That's okay. But here's the thing. I asked where you were because I will able to go into kind of your rough area and click on one of the households and see what ASP is available to you, because oftentimes you live in one area and you only have Spectrum. You don't have anyone else, you know. So let me show you what I was
I
telling
think
you
you
about.
asked me actually.
Oh, I asked you? No, I asked you about what you use Spectrum and you don't respond. But I asked Alicat what his rough neighborhood was, but you know, he don't know me, I don't know him, so that's fine. FTC coverage map. I show you here. Oh, not this. There it is. This is the broadband map from the FTC. This is mandated by the U.S. government to kind of for people to search up what coverage they can get from their neighborhood. So I go somewhere, whatever. I don't know where. Let me see here. St. Paul, maybe St. Paul. Oh, here it is. Okay, this is a random house on the map, okay? So here I can see that he has
Turn off their Wi-Fi. Ready to go.
No. Here I can see he used HughesNet, he used he can use Quantum Fiber, or he can use Xfinity. Everything else is wireless, okay? Fixed wireless. So that means you install like a modem inside your house and it's slow as fuck. And then you got satellite, so this is like Starlink.
Yeah, modems aren't as slow.
But yeah, and then the business stuff is obviously not for your neighborhood. So the only two choices you have is Quantum Fiber and Xfinity. Now, for my house, I can only see one thing, which is Spectrum. I don't have any other options, and any other option is just fixed wireless or satellite. So the only choice I have is Spectrum. So I can't just switch a provider. Same thing for you, Alley Cat. Oh, he just left. Damn, that's sad. Anyways, I was about to ask him about his job.
What?
No, the big B guy.
Oh, the not Somalian.
Yeah, although he was a bit Egyptian.
Egyptian,
Although he
yeah.
was a bit fucking annoying, but I still want to ask him about his work. But anyways, U-boot shell is locked behind
security, right?
I think he does like building stuff and stuff. I'll talk to him later about that. Okay. So you're trying to get access to U-boot shell access, but it's locked behind a password and it's SHA-256, and he tried to brute force it for 3 weeks and it doesn't work. Okay. So how can you hack U-boot? At least he has access to the eMMC clock cycle to be able to cut it off for a small time. Right? Yes. So he says the entire boot chain, what's up? The entire boot chain is signed and secured, but he can still modify the stuff inside memory. So he says, luckily for us, the Askey, the machine itself.
What is this guy yapping about?
We're talking about hardware security, bro. We've been talking about this for 30 minutes.
Some embedded nerd shit, dude.
Yes. This is nerd shit.
Hacking routers.
Yes.
Sitting here pretending like I understand things, you know.
No, I tried to make it simple. If you got questions, just ask.
The problem is you throw around terminologies, right? But like I'm only accustomed and familiar with like half.
Well,
So, like,
here's the thing. I asked you in the beginning if you use Spectrum, because if you tell me yes, I would be able to at least explain to you step by step. But you don't want to elaborate, so I just go straight back into the topic.
I have no
remember?
idea. Zero idea, dude. So it's a waste of even time to try to contemplate.
Well, I will.
Alex probably knows. He's a network engineer or whatever. He probably has like some rough idea.
Yes, but I also gave him like a 10, 15 minute introduction on everything, so he can understand the concepts. Yeah. Yep. Okay.
Sure.
So
Wait,
I will.
Are you?
What? Okay.
Patrick Starr.
I will go back to. Okay, I will go back to this. Okay, so this is the boot process. You power on the router. It reads the memory from read-only ROM, goes to PCL, goes to SPL1, and this is all software. So these two is hardware. This is hardware 2, and then after this is software. So after SPL1, it goes to U-boot, right? Okay, so U-boot is one of the boot process. Oh, did he just leave?
Yeah.
Oh, rip. Okay, so he's in U-boot, and he can't change U-boot, but he can change the configuration that U-boot would read from. So he dumped out the contents of what U-boot reads from, the partition. This is one of the partitions on the flash chip, and he can change these things without modifying the U-boot itself, which means the thing can still turn on. Like, it can still go through the boot stages without him having to change any programs inside flash. So he sees this configuration, and then right here, one of the configuration is boot cmd, boot command. Where is it? Right here. So basically, U-boot would read this boot command, and after reading all this other stuff, and then reading boot command, it would say, okay, so launch the program boot ICQ. So say I'm in terminal, right? And then I can replace this boot command with neo fetch, and then it would show up this program inside serial console. You know what I means?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's trying to change the boot command and maybe load something else, like maybe something other firmware, and then U-boot might just let it go. So he's going through this right now, and he says, we have an ability to change this command because it's in a partition that he can change and wouldn't change the the program, which means it wouldn't affect the signature, which means it can keep on turning on. So he tried to change the boot command into something else. So what he changed to it is, okay, set my IP address as this, and then set the server IP as that, and then boot from my TFTP server, and then use the bootm command for that. That's what this command says. Do you understand that, or do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, I understand.
Okay. So the router has this IP. The router is going to contact this IP, and this IP is going to be his own router with a TFTP server. And then he's gonna have this image called caramel.image, and then the boot command is supposed to be bootm. But guess what? Secure boot fuse is enabled, not allowed command, and use boot ICQ and it's resetting, which means you're just turning back on, off and on again. So the manufacturer, maybe Spectrum or maybe Askey, already knew that someone else can use bootm. Oh, I'm wrong. I am technically right, so let me explain. You know what a fuse is?
A fuse?
Yes.
Like, you mean like a hardware fuse, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, how the Nintendo Switch prevents downgrades by blowing its own fuse. Have you heard of this before?
No.
Okay.
If you're trying to like retrofit or put the reverse version of a firmware onto your thing.
So this is how it works. When you're flashing the firmware itself, it will burn one fuse. Okay. If you burn all 8, if you flash the firmware 7 times, you only have 1 fuse left. After that fuse blows up, it's a hardware fuse. It's very small, and you can't reach it. You can't touch it. After that last fuse blows up, you can't flash the Nintendo anymore. This is a hardware thing. It's a hardware fuse. Now, a fuse doesn't have to be something like a firmware flash. What often happens is many, say, iPhones inside factories, right? They have, before they leave the factory, the last thing the factory does is blow the fuse. And what happens is after you blow that fuse, the connection is no longer there. And so and the connection can be something like allow this device to flash the firmware. So after it goes out of the factory, no one can flash that firmware. And even if it goes back to the factory, you can't really put that fuse back together. You know?
Right.
So it's a hardware thing. It's a hardware feature. So this thing is the bootm. Supposedly, if you're trying to run the bootm command, the fuse has to be attached. But the factory, before leaving the factory, before the machine leaves the Askey factory, they already blew the fuse. So it makes sure that no one else, after the machine leaves the factory, can flash can use this command bootm. Let me explain to you what boot ICQ is and what bootm is. This helps. Let me see here. I need water, bro. Okay, whatever. So if you're trying to run, say, ZSH, do you know bash or ZSH? Do you know what that is?
I've heard of bash, but I don't really know what that is.
It's just a command line interface. So, or wait, a command line emulator, I think. What is bash or ZSH? Yeah, command line interpreters. So you can program in bat, right? Windows, you can use bat, right? You can also use .PowerShell, right?
Yeah.
Or .ps1. So PowerShell runs inside like PS and then blah blah blah. Let me show you here. PowerShell. So right here, this says PS and then C and then / and then this thing, right?
Yep.
And then bash Windows. It says oh, not that. That's not that. Oh well, bat. Was it? And this one says C / and you can do echo on and off, right?
Yep.
So you can see, no, I need to drink water, bro. I don't feel good. Give me a sec.
Nice. Are you a student, Alley Cat?
No, I work in the field,
Oh,
in the
nice.
real world. What about yourself?
Yeah, I also am working. I guess recently graduated.
Yeah. What's your degree in?
I did mechanical engineering, but right now I work as a software engineer.
Oh, that's fire.
Yup, how about you?
Electrical computer engineer.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But I'm doing a master's right now, electrical computer engineering,
Very
and
cool.
Congrats,
MBA at
bro.
the same time.
It's always great to go into software engineering no matter your background, bro. You can go from electrical or you can go from mechanical into software engineering, bro. That's great. I'm a high school graduate. I'm 22 years old. I got no fucking degree, no certificates, but I'm having fun.
That's good, man.
Nice.
Yes, but I do need a degree or a certificate. That's for sure. So I can get hired because I don't have a life, bro. Okay.
Damn, you could probably just bust this out in your interview. They'd probably hire you.
No, I don't think I can't apply this to my job, you know. Okay. I'm a DevOps engineer, so if you have a job for me, let me know. So, the console has a command line interpreter, right? So what happens with the interpreter is, interpreter can be PowerShell or Bash or something like Windows C/. They interpret the command for the command line console to run things, right? So essentially, Bash, for example, or PowerShell is a wrapper for Windows command line. It's an interpreter. It's not really the same thing, but basically you need to know, like, when you're running like boot ICQ, you are running a lot of things at the same time. So you are running signature verification, you are running size checking, or whatever, and then after all that, it runs bootm at the end. So you can say, like, let me turn on. So you can say like this. I have a bootm, basically. Hold on. Boot IPQ equals do this plus do that plus boot m. Do you get the idea?
Yeah.
So do this and do that can be signature verification, but in the end, the basic command for Unix, for Linux, is bootm. Okay. So in the end, so bootm is just a raw thing. It loads it and boots it for U-boot. It loads, it takes in whatever image that it gives you, and then it just turns it on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So so he's trying to, so the default command is boot ICQ, and what boot ICQ does is it checks the image, and then if it's good, it moves on to the next program, maybe like calculating things or checksums, and then it moves on to the last thing, which is to turn it on. And turn it on is using bootm. So right here you see this thing. It says set my server, set the router to this IP somewhere up here, set the server, my server, to this IP somewhere up here, and then tftp boot to this image somewhere up here as well, and then use the command bootm. But the thing is, the manufacturer has blown the fuse for the secure boot fuse for bootm, so that's why he can't just run bootm. But boot ICQ can use bootm. But boot ICQ maybe just package its own bootm. It doesn't really invoke bootm separately, but it's just one way that things work. Because Qualcomm, the chip itself, or Askey can make sure that only boot ICQ can run, because boot M is the fuse is already burnt. So that's basically how it is. So he says, well, it seems the OEM saw us coming from a mile away. They have modified the default boot behavior and disabled the boot M command entirely. Instead, they have a proprietary boot ICQ command which does the loading and booting of their signed firmware images only. So, boot ICQ invokes boot M, but you can't just run boot M because it's out of the factory. That means you can only use boot ICQ. So he said, I tried a couple of other commands. I know there's no USB ports on this device, but Linux does support, checking if you have USB ports. And so he runs something like USB boot, so like boot from USB. And what happened is the device, the router, knows it doesn't have a USB port, but the router is still being told to boot from USB. So the router is like, okay, well, what do I do? Guess what? It gives it an error, and then it jumps him into a shell.
Oh, that's nice.
So this is like a PowerShell. This can be a PowerShell shell or a Bash shell. It's like what I said earlier. That's why I said this earlier, because I was kind of leading you into it. So it executed the command and jumped into a shell, skipping the password check. And in fact, any command that generates some kind of error will throw us into a shell without having us to enter a password. Now we can really start playing around and use the serial console. If we can dump memory from here and even write memory as we please. So remember what I said earlier, that you can't really change the image itself, otherwise it wouldn't turn on, it wouldn't boot because it would not pass signature verification. But now that you're in the shell, you can at least start changing things. You can change things inside the memory. You can dump things. You can dump the dump the firmware image from that shell, right? Okay, so he says, now that we can make U-boot exit into a shell by causing an error to throw into the current program, and this is pretty easy to do if you have butchered your board like I have in order to gain write access to the storage. But given how simple this exploit is, surely there's an easier way. So he's trying to find other ways to, exploit or gain privilege escalation. So like how he jumped into the shell and used inside U-boot, that's one way to escalate privileges, right? Now, remember I talked a lot about the jumper or him sanding off things?
Correct.
And he says, yes, there's an easier way to do than to kind of glitch the U-boot. He says, all we need to do is interrupt signals between the CPU and the eMMC flash chip when YouTube is trying to load the firmware. We need to do this trick after U-boot has finished initializing itself, but before U-boot loads the kernel. The perfect time to do this is during the 2 seconds U-boot displays the message, hit space key to stop U-boot, auto boot. So you remember you turn on the Windows machine when you boot from a USB that runs a Windows image, right? It says click a key or click any key to boot from USB or DVD. Have you seen that before?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. But let me go through, because I was trying to figure this out earlier. So, from this point on, I'm just gonna say what I roughly understand, but I'm still learning this myself. So, here it says, when this thing shows up in the U-boot, and U-boot displays this message, hit space key to stop auto boot. What he does is he just engages the interrupt signal for this thing right here, which is the CLK pin. And because U-boot is trying to load the kernel image from the eMMC kernel image from the flash chip, I'll just call it the flash chip, and then suddenly the flash chip has a glitch clock cycle, right? What happens then? It's going to the U-boot sees, okay, I'm loading a flash chip and something happened. Oh, panic! What do I do? Guess what? They throw the user into the shell, the same shell we saw earlier, right here. This is the same shell. So the condition for this is maybe a program, an error handling program, is say, if anything bad happens, throw him into a shell. Or it can be, okay, verify, but if they don't know what happens, the next instruction is a shell. So like, I guess whatever reason, this router just decides to kick the user into a shell. And why would I, if I can type a simple command like USB boot to get into the shell, why would I want to again try to use the CLK pin instead? Do you know why? Do you have a guess? Why would I prefer using a pin on the motherboard instead of just typing in a command and saying like USB boot? Do you know?
I'm not entirely sure.
Okay, remember he has connected to the serial console with whatever hardware hacking stuff he has, right?
Right.
But now all he needs to do is to tell people, hey, when you turn the router on, and it's within like the second you turn on the router, within 15 seconds, put your thing on this pin right here, and then let it go. And basically they'll get
right.
So they don't have to have all the equipment that he has, and then he can go into a shell. Basically, it makes it a lot easier, a lot more accessible. But you know, after he has shell, he can do anything. He can patch programs, he can load new programs, and do whatever he wants. So he interrupted U-boot without changing U-boot itself, just by changing the program that it runs, and then kicking himself into a shell. And because he has control over U-boot, he can decide what happens from the boot stage from that point onwards. So boot stage iOS. So if you are in any of these boot stages, right, for an iPhone, you go from boot ROM and then boot ROM verifies iBoot, verifies kernel, kernel verifies iOS, right? But say I'll apply this to this case. Power on, SoC boot ROM verifies PBL, PBL verifies SPL1, and then SPL1 verifies U-boot. And then U-boot would typically verify the firmware that comes after it, right? But the thing is, he took control of U-boot. So from this point on, he can do anything he wants. He can dump the firmware out. He can change anything. And from this point on, this is no longer hacking. This is just how you build a build a Linux image for a router. So in order to build a Linux image for a router, you need to know what devices that the router has. And you have to dump the device tree from Linux. Hold on, device tree. Let me show you what a device tree is, because I'm sure you haven't heard of it before. Okay, so the device tree is a file or a binary containing information about the board and its hardware. So why do we need the device tree? So after we hack into the router, we have root access to it. Why do we need to dump the device tree? It's because the device tree is made by the manufacturer, and it contains every information about every hardware. So it would say you have a bunch of tools laid inside your room, right? Maybe you don't know how to keep track of it, so you hire a guy to help you keep track of the tools. So if you're the kernel, you say, hey, I need to use the Wi-Fi radio. So the person helps you grab the Wi-Fi radio and gives it to you. Or maybe he tells you where the Wi-Fi radio is. And that's what a device tree is. It tells you specifically at this address, there's this device you can use and how to interact with this device. So if you are trying to build an entire new image for something like OpenWRT, then after you can hack, only if you can hack the router and get the device tree, then you can import it and then build it inside OpenWRT. And then in this case, when OpenWRT turns on, it already knows where to find each device, like the Wi-Fi or the modem chip or whatever chip, you know, or a USB plug port if it has one. And then this part I'm still learning, but you know, at least at this point we can interrupt U-boot we can get the device tree out and then build it into OpenWRT, and then we can feed it back into U-boot and say, hey, turn on the OpenWRT because I already have the device tree. So, at this point, you control the U-boot, the boot stage, you control the kernel, and you control the programs under the kernel. So it's your router. Does that make sense? You all this hacking stuff. Now you can finally run your own Linux operating system in the router. You can run OpenWRT, or you can run another Linux OS with your own device tree, but it's a pain in the butt to deal with, so just use the OpenWRT, right? I hope you're not asleep yet. in OpenWRT, you can modify you can modify things as much as you want. You can install programs like VPN servers. You can add firewalls. You can add YouTube ad blockers or like website ad blockers. You can do anything. Basically, it's your own machine. It's like you buy a Linux computer and you change whatever inside of it. If you know what I mean. All right, I'm done talking.
That was a very nice explanation. I just sat here, but I was listening.
Appreciate it, bro. Would you like to add a LinkedIn?
Oh, hell yeah.
Sick. Let me send you my link. I did also send it to this Alley Cat, but he didn't reply, so I don't know if he's still awake.
Maybe he fell asleep.
Maybe he's just digesting the information.
That's true.
Yes. But this is essentially everything that happened, and I've, oh, I just doxed myself. Yep. Oh, I did it. Okay, that's fine. This is how you hack a Wi-Fi router. And also, fuck Spectrum. I mean, I like Spectrum, but like, fuck Spectrum, bro. Like, Spectrum is pretty... Spectrum is reliable, but the practices, like locking down routers, I don't agree with that. So, Spectrum, if I have to work with you in the future, please don't take this out of context. I like you as a company, but I don't like how you conduct your practices because you are creating a lot of e-waste in the world, bro.
I actually really like Xfinity.
Is Xfinity like wired or wireless?
It's wired. It's like Spectrum.
Okay. But does the internet come from the cable lines?
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure.
Then in that case, at least Spectrum has a competitor. Because
Yeah.
In our area, Spectrum has no competitor. And I'm always waiting for someone called Frontier, Frontier Fiber. They have...
I know Frontier.
I would switch to Frontier. But, I don't think we really need fiber for now. But if there is, it would be a good competition for Spectrum to have. Because only with competition can you, lower the prices for consumers. Because one thing I noticed about Spectrum is they increase the price. It's not fun.
Yeah. Yeah, Xfinity is pretty popular in like the Bay Area of California.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I live in Minnesota. That's the fact. And it's the suburbs, and the infrastructure, the lines are just the same. So we really don't have any companies coming in and switching the lines and innovating and creating pressure for Spectrum to innovate too. So we're basically hard stuck with them. Oh.
Alright, I just sent you a request.
Alright. Let me check LinkedIn, bro. Oh, I just doxed myself, bro. Again.
Don't dox me.
No, I won't dox you, bro. Don't worry. But I will copy your name and then send it to you. Thank you. And thank you for buying LinkedIn Premium.
Oh yeah, I should probably not buy it anymore, but I just had it while I was searching for.
It's
for a
fine,
job.
bro. What? You work there? Bro, I would like to work
Yeah.
there, bro. That is insane. Yes.
It's pretty fun.
I don't have the opportunity, bro. I'm a high school graduate without a certificate. What can I do?
Well, they do hire high school graduates without like degrees. You just, I mean,
But you have done a lot of internships, so you are doing great. But for me, you know, I'm not even in college, so I'm not doing internships.
I know they hired this one guy out of high school. He was like 17.
Yeah, but I'm 22, bro. I left high school 4 years ago, and I have.
Yeah.
And here's my background. I came from Taiwan. So I left Taiwan. I left America. Okay, let me get this back straight. I was born in Taiwan, and then at 12 years old I left Taiwan to go to Minnesota, and then at 18 years old I go back to Taiwan to serve military because I'm a man, and all men in Taiwan has to serve military. But I was unable to return to America because I was an asshole to my grandmother. Not that I'm like doing bad things to her, but like I was a troublemaker at school, and she's just done with me, right? But you know, after about 4 years of having my career in Taiwan, you can see it on my LinkedIn. I returned back to Minnesota now. I just returned actually. I don't have any money in my bank account. I'm trying to jumpstart a new life, and I'm trying to find a job, but I'm probably just gonna be working at a desk, and it's difficult for me. But I'm trying to get a CompTIA Security Plus certificate, and I'm willing to move anywhere if there's a job. But regardless, you know, I am starting anew.
I'm back,
So,
dogs.
hey, what's up?
Welcome back.
What are we debating?
Oh, we're just talking about computers.
Wanna debate the worst tank in top tier with me?
The worst tank in top?
Top
Bruh.
tier.
Oh my god, I thought we were talking about League of Legends and I was like starting to get happy.
Nah,
I
fuck
was
that.
like, I can actually talk about this.
I hate League of Legends more than I hate War Thunder.
What the fuck? They're like the same thing, bruh. They just have
No,
like.
they're not, bro. Oh yeah.
So, do you think these two guys are just joining here to play games?
Yeah, they probably it just happened.
Well, with all due respect, I'm probably gonna hide. Yes. All right, I will hide them. It's just a more polite way to say, you know.
What?
It's just a more polite way to.
Abort male babies.
Which one?
Bro, what just happened? This
It
channel
says
just all of a
that's the channel
just
name.
got
Okay. Oh, abort male babies. Okay, he's not messing around.
Yeah,
No, they're all joining. Okay.
Yeah.
You know
More
what?
women, more ladies for me.
All right. That's pretty much the same joke I was having earlier. Yeah, less competition for the men.
Crazy,
Right.
bro.
Yeah. But anyways, Slam Bam.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's how it works, dude. What do you think I'm gonna date them today?
How do you enjoy your job?
We can we can go to a different channel. 1 second. I'm gonna go to a 1-on-1.
Okay. I will also send you a message, Alley Cat, for 101. If you're here. Or send me a message, so I just want to be sure.